In this video, I'm going to do the definitions on page 9 and 10 in the packet on task 4, lines and planes introduction. And so a lot of these definitions are the foundation of geometry. And so it's really important that you know them, know how to name different things with symbols, and how to draw each of these items. So first thing is, what is geometry? So geo means early and metry means measure. So geometry means earth measure. And we measure things in different ways. So the first thing we talk about is in geometry is points. And a point defines a particular place in space and has no dimensions. And so when we name a point, if we just have a point somewhere, what we usually do is we put a capital letter by it to name that point. So if we're naming a point, we would draw the point symbol and then A. And this point could be on different figures. So I could draw this and this point A here, like this A and C. This point here is our A. And so if we wanted to reference that point, we would make the dot symbol and then put a capital A by it. So any points we name with capital letters. The next geometric figure we're talking about is lines. So lines define an infinite set of points that go on in both directions forever without any curvature. This structure is one-dimensional and 2 points are needed to define a line. The second way to define a line is a lowercase cursive letter, can also be used to define a line. So this is my line here. So this line would be line AB. So what we do is we write capital AB and then we put the line symbol over top of it. Or you could write line AB, or this is also line K because it's this lowercase cursive letter by it. Okay, so like this line here, I would name it as capital AC, and then I would put a line over it. Now, if there's 3 points, like if there was a D in the middle, we still only name it with 2. So we never use 3 points for a line, only 2. So you could also say like AD, and it would represent the same line because this line goes on forever. So always just do 2 different points. Like again, you could also do DC. And the order of the points doesn't matter either. So then we have a line segment. And a line segment defines an infinite set of points. But remember, between any 2 points, another can always be found. That's why there's an infinite number of points that has 2 endpoints. Okay, so it's really part of a line. It has a start and a stop, but then in between here is like an infinite number of points. So we name it the same way. We always use 2 letters. 2 capital letters, but then we just put the segment symbol on it. So we don't put the arrows on or say segment AB. Okay, again, if you have like this, you can name this one. You have to name it by the start and end of where you want. So like here, I would say KE and then put the segment. So that represents the whole thing. If I say KD, then I'm only looking at this part of the segment. And then if I say DE, it would just be that part of the segment. So for a segment, there's really not a ton of different ways to name it. You could either do KE or EK. So there's pretty much 2 different ways to name a segment, but you have to name it with the letter you're starting with, the point that you're starting with, and then the point that you're ending with. Now, array defines an infinite set of points that has an endpoint on one end, which is like the line segment, and goes on forever on the other end, like a line. So it's half line segment. Okay, so this is my array. It starts here at A, and then it goes on forever in this direction towards B. Okay, so when I name array, the arrow is very important. The endpoint has to be over the letter where it starts. So if I wrote like BA, we would have to write the arrow this way because my array starts at A and then goes on forever in the direction of B. Okay, so that's very important. You can also write ray AB, but again, when you write this, the endpoint has to come first, and then another point on the line in that direction that the line is going. Okay, so we generally name the endpoint first, like this way. You can, if you're not writing out ray and you're putting the symbol, you can do the reverse order, but again, then the arrow has to also be in the reverse order. So we have this ray, and it says, what are all the ways to name the following ray? Okay, so the main thing is my ray starts at A. So A has to be included in my naming of it. But then I can use B or C because again, it's going to go on forever in this direction. So I can do B, but then it would still keep going past C, or I can do C and then B is still included on that ray. So one way would be like AC, and then I would put the arrow. And I guess if I wanted to just do the other way, then I would just reverse the direction of the arrow. Okay. And then the other way would be AB, and then that, and then again, I could do BA. Now I could also say ray. Now, if I say ray, I have to start with the endpoint. So then I would say AB or AC in this case. Okay, or I could say ray AB. Now, one thing I can't do is I can't say BC, because if I say BC, then I'm starting here and I'm missing this part of the ray. Okay. So if I want this entire ray, I always have to have A in my naming. So then we have different two-dimensional structures. So another one is a plane. So a plane is a two-dimensional surface that never curves. Think of a tabletop, and it's divided by 3 points. And technically this plane goes on forever in all directions. So how we name a plane is we use 3 points on that plane. Okay, and you have to do 3 points. You also could name it with 4. 3 and 4 are the most common. You could technically name it with more, but it has to be at least 3 points. So this plane would be ABC. So just for another example, if I have a plane like this, okay, so all of these points are on this plane. I could name it with any 3, or again, I could, usually we use 3 or 4, I could name it with 4. So I could say like this plane would be ABE. I could say ABC. I could say DAC. There's a lot of different combinations. I could say EBC. Okay, and the order, especially on this one, really doesn't matter. If we're talking about, I'll just show you some of the, if we have it, sorry, one of these examples, like this, where we draw it like a box, we usually name the points kind of in order going around, and you can go clockwise or counterclockwise, but otherwise it really doesn't matter the order that you put them in. Okay, and again, you could name with 4, so I could say like A, B, C, D, that's fine as well. Then we have parallel lines. So parallel lines are 2 lines or 2 line segments that lie on the same plane and never intersect. To show things are parallel, we usually use this arrow symbol. So we draw the same number of arrows on the lines to indicate they're parallel. And the symbol for this would be R is parallel to S. So this is the symbol for parallel. Again, we can name them with 2 letters. And so here, because I have another set of parallel lines, I could just do 2 arrows. They have to match up the number of arrows. And then here I would say AB, that line is parallel to CD. So then we have perpendicular lines, and perpendicular lines are those lines in the same plane and that intersect at right angles. To show a right angle, we draw like this half kind of a box. We draw this symbol, and that indicates that the angle is right angle, which is 90 degrees. So if we have two perpendicular lines, this is the symbol for perpendicular. So it's kind of an upside down T. So if I want to show two things are perpendicular, I write the two lines and then I do this upside down T. And again, perpendicular lines, they intersect at right angles, which is 90 degrees. Now, probably the least familiar one is skew lines. So skew lines are lines that are not in the same plane and do not intersect. So they're not parallel and they don't intersect. So an example on this, and usually you need a three-dimensional figure in order to show through skew lines, would be that this line here and this one here in the back of the box are skew. So they don't intersect because this is like kind of on the front and this is on the back. And they're not parallel. Okay. Now, one thing to be careful about is this line that I'm writing and this line here are not skew because they are parallel. They run in that same direction and they're technically on a plane, which is called this diagonal plane that goes through this three-dimensional figure. Okay, so just be careful if they're asking for skew lines. Never give any ones that are parallel, even if they don't initially look like they're on the same plane. So we have a few more. So any points that lay on the same line are said to be collinear. So in this line, A, B, and C are the 3 points, and they're on the same line, so they're collinear. Points that are not on the same line are non-collinear. Now, for non-collinear points, you need at least 3, because any 2 points, even if it's not drawn, you can always draw a line. Like no matter what, if you just have 2 points, you can always find a line to connect it. So you have to, in order to have non-collinear points, you need at least 3. Okay, so these 3 are non-collinear because there's no way for me to draw one single line that goes through all 3 of them. Any points that lie on the same, let's just say plane, are said to be coplanar. So any points that lie on the same plane are coplanar. So these 3 points, X, Y, and Z, are coplanar. And again, points that are not on the same plane are non-coplanar. And then the last definition is opposite rays. Opposite rays are 2 rays with the same endpoint that extend in opposite directions, and they form a line. So if I look at this line, I have this point B here, and I could make this ray going in this direction, and then I could make another ray BC going in the other direction, and that would be 2 opposite rays that form this line. So the ray would be BA, which is this one, and again, I would go this way. If I did AB, just remember your arrow would go this way because the endpoint has to be on the B. And then I would do BC and this way. Okay, or again, you could do CB and go that way. But BA and BC are opposite rays. So it's pretty much you find a point on the line and then you create a ray going in the different directions. Okay, so again, BA and BC are opposite rays that form the line AC, and it says what are 2 other ways to name this line? So if we're just talking about the line, we can pick any 2 points. So I could say AB and draw that. That would be the line AB, and it just keeps going to hit C. Or I could also say BC and then draw that line. Remember, for a line, we can do any 2 points on it. Okay, or again, you could switch the order and do BA and CB. Okay, so those are all the definitions from task 4, and then we will do these practice problems in class.